sense going to tech meetups to try to get developers that
Absolutely.
way?
So I'm never know. Question. You're asking how do you get developers to adopt the enterprise technology?
No, how to get them to adopt an SDK or
if
API,
your company
an
is an
analytics
SDK.
API.
You talk to anyone in the ad business who's got an SDK, no one deploys SDKs anymore. I made a strategic decision when I joined LifeStreet over a year and a half ago that we were not going to push the SDK. We were going to make it enabled, but our model was have good tech, be able to buy in the open commoditized market, and then that's it. You connect to the exchanges that are out there because people are not deploying SDKs.
People are doing some. I think if you can provide value, everyone needs some sort of analytics, right? Then you just got to decide, okay, if I deploy Flurry's API or SDK, whatever it is, they're going to suck the life out of my data and monetize it 6 ways to Sunday. So do I want to do that? Or do I want to buy some from local links? Or do I want to do some with Google Analytics and I really don't, I don't really know what to do. But it's been sucked into the Google machine somehow. So you need an analytics engine. Probably don't want to build that yourself.
Don't you think that market is saturated? I mean, I think
it's saturated.
Starting a business today is
it's been saturated on the web forever. Look at Mixpanel. They came out of nowhere. They built an awesome business. You can, Omniture sucks. They get big, they can't innovate.
That's true.
It's like every enterprise stack just reaches a level where they just, and there's a new thing, we did this, so OpenMind, this little company I'm part of in Ireland, we're, 10 million top line, that much money in the bank, we just mint money with operators. And it's, we want to get into the app economy, but, the guys started that when they were looking at Unix software. So like, this shit is going to Linux, this whole messaging stack and carriers. Now it's gone to the cloud. It's like, and carriers are just getting there. In enterprise software, you got these waves, and there's entry points all the time for new stuff. I see it in the data business. I'm constantly amazed. I think there's tons of room for, if you don't raise too much money and you're comfortable with, 20 to $70 million exit. You can make money that way. It's an okay way to live.
This is meant to be a little more hands-on. So do you guys have questions that you want to?
Yeah, I have a question. So, for example, something that works pretty well in the social media is the like thing, right? Or suggesting to other people use my app, or so I'm just wondering if you figured out how that the acquisition of customer, how good is that? For example, if you take Uber, you download Uber, if you invite 10 of your friends, you get $10 next ride, right? Is that a mechanism that works, or is it just something hype?
Depends, I think. Depends, very heavily depends on the application, the product that you're talking about. I think that's something that we're working on right now. Once again, if you can build into your product something that sort of organically encourages people to share without any incentive, if the incentive is using the app and then happens to be collaborative in a certain way. I mean, Uber's, it's a little bit, it's a different story because they're basically just saying, share this to your friends and we'll give you some credit or something like that, right? And that costs a lot of money. Is that what you're talking about? So yeah, I mean, kind of depends on the product, what it does. But I think there's always an opportunity to find an interesting way to do that, like the cat thing. That was really cool, right? I'm sure that people installed the app because their friends told them, hey man, if you hit this button and you pay $15, you can get cats for a day or whatever, right? So that was kind of an interesting way, word of mouth, to get installs, I guess. I mean, local and everything.
There's a hard cost to it. You have to understand what the hard cost is. You have to understand what the lifetime value, the ROI is, because you're requiring a user. I'm an ING savings customer from way back in the day because someone gave me $25 to open up a savings account, and I still am. And so Capital Bank, whatever they are now. So you still, whether you're buying the user through me or you're buying it through yourself, you're still putting a hard cost to it. So you need to know what the ROI is. Might as well give it a shot at a different channel.
think the idea of a viral loop is cool because I know a lot of companies are employing that. Like Dropbox is probably the most famous company that employed a viral loop, right? Where instead of just giving it to one person, they gave it to the person that gifted the storage and then yourself as well. But I think the fact that is not being, maybe not being addressed or really there's no formula is a lot of those companies already had some progress or they already had some traction. How do you get that initial traction for these companies that are in beta or these companies that don't have a name or don't have an advisor or don't have...
No one's going to share an app that's not interesting. No one's going to play an app that's not interesting. If you have an app that's interesting, you have a product that's good, people want to use it. Like you're talking about the viral thing. The viral thing's great, it's just going to cost more because you get money to refer and the referee.
Sure, but I mean like a good product by itself doesn't just sell itself.
No, absolutely. Like marketing wins, right? Every time. The best product is going to win. But when Smule launched, Cindy was just here. She launched the Zippo lighter app around the same time. That thing just took off.
Yeah.
And
it was free though. You had to pay for us.
Yeah. You're right. They made money on skins. That was the beginning of it.
Yeah.
But so I just think that it's part art. Part science, you gotta hustle, and startups are really fucking hard.
Look for the awkward.
It was easy.
Timing
There's just, I haven't figured out the formula, I figured out how to exit. I can tell you when exactly. I think, the key there is, for me, is not to be too greedy. There's, not, man, take a win. Take a win. It's meaningfully interesting,
Like Groupon didn't kind of.
There's a small, we're in this big cauldron of, frothy stuff that has been enabled by Amazon Web Services and really low cost computing in the cloud.
VCs.
I'm venture capital, but it's nowhere near what it was 10 years ago or, back in the last bubble. It was then like you'd spend $1 million on your launch party and you'd go and you'd write a massive check to Sun to get like a boatload of Solaris boxes. And, and you were just, you couldn't. And your pitch to me as an analyst was, I've hired 50 people. I'm like, that's great. What are they doing? It was very bizarre. And now we've got, it's much easier to start a company. It's much easier to get up and going. But I hate the term pivot. I just think everyone's pivoting. Everyone's fucking, it's like, you failed, move on, just forget about it, and it's like, thankfully, there's a value, if you've busted your ass and you've created a team and you've got some IP, you can find a home for it. If you can, but there's an art to that. It's not easy. And, you don't need, there's a small group, there's 1% that are less than 1% of really smart, great entrepreneurs, tiny percentage, get $1 billion valuation. Every VC you go into pitch, it says, well, this isn't $1 billion company. I'm like, yeah. How many of your companies are? Like a small fraction. And it's really hard. And most of those don't have the founders by the time they reach that value. So, it's just, but the best technology doesn't win. It's marketing that wins. It's finding and attracting marketing talent and being prepared to give marketing talent a lot of equity. And, not just think that, oh, it's an appendage, I went and hired that person. Make them a founder, pull them in early, pull them close to you, make them make it meaningfully interesting and you'll hire great talent. Just don't get too greedy.
Well, like Betamax versus VHS, right?
Yeah.
Classic example of, supposedly Betamax was the best technology, but VHS won.
But how about engaging PR agents? What do you guys think of that, or at what point would you?
PR is good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
Just it depends on who your target audience is, as all with everything, and like how many ways can you tell the story, and how much time do you have to tell the story different ways for different outlets.
Yeah, and the outlets, there's at the end of the day, how many TechCrunch articles is one New York Times column worth?
Probably like a lot.
A lot, a freaking boatload, right? Yeah. So I think PR definitely has its place, and particularly when you want to reach serious enterprises, mainstream America.
I got to interject here. I'm having a hard time swallowing the last point you made, which is products matters less than marketing. From a person, and it wouldn't be a panel if we didn't have disagree. From a standpoint of someone who sees a lot of apps that come out,
Right.
9 of them fail. 9 of them will fail, and the majority of the times they fail is not because they're not priced right. Because these are big companies that are funding these apps. They'll fail because no one sticks around long enough. There's not enough retention for it to overcome Candy Crush in the marketplace. That's what the problem is. I mean, you see these companies, they'll throw $10 for an install in a test market, and they can't get someone to stick around long enough to make a $3 LTV work. So product is important.
I wouldn't underestimate the importance of great technology, great product, and having something compelling. But, all too often I've seen teams of dudes sit around and talk about tech all day, and nothing comes out the other freaking end in terms of actual validation from the marketplace, and that's a lot of tech companies.
So I'll agree that
It's
the year of the garage developer is over. There's these breakout hits, they're becoming less and less. I talked to a guy last year who invented a game that you guys have probably all played. And I talked to him the day before he launched it. He's like, I got this new title out. I don't know how it's going to do, but I just quit my job at Microsoft, and I'm hoping it'll do okay. The next day, by the time I got a hold of him, it was 2 weeks later, he said, phone's been ringing off the hook. The phone went to number one in the Apple Store. I made more in this last week out of ads than I did out of the last year from Microsoft. Those guys are becoming less and less because the game is now saturated from people who know what they're doing. So you can't have one without the other. But you have to have.
Well, but how long is he going to be able to maintain that for?
He's still killing it.
So,
but it's hard.
Can you say what happened?
Well, yeah, it's hard to maintain.
Okay.
I think Smule has done a great job of
Yeah.
starting with it and then acquiring talent and paying for good people and being prepared to really invest in bringing in the best.
Well, and also our CEO saying, get 50-cent CPIs or else.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, but everyone else is paying 3 or 4. Do it,
Right.
I've got a question.
Yeah, I feel like technology is accelerating every year faster and faster. What are you guys expecting in the next, I mean, this is a fool's errand to try to think, but just, what's your take on the next 5 years? What are they going to bring?
It's a broad question.
Wearable stuff's going to be
I hear
interesting.
wearables all the time.
Yeah.
Wearables.
Yeah.
In terms of where we are going into mobile, like more.
So you got about 3 more turns on the iPhone. In 5 years. So what does the iPhone 10 look like?
So
it's like,
Imagine that's what it looks like.
wearables.
It's like words coming right and wider, whatever.
So one thing you can bet on is that, the volume of data will continue to explode. I got to come up with a law for that, right?
Yeah.
Then I'll be rich.
There you
go. So you're gonna have this explosion just based on continuing grinding down the cost of storage and better processing and just, you know,
But it's not
more
going to
than,
be
and every transaction being digitized in all sorts of ways, right?
Google
And
Glass, that's the future.
Yeah, additional metadata being added to a transaction when you go into a store and you swipe at your Square card, and you know, so no doubt that there will be really, really rich consumer data to play with, and the idea that we'll be relying on panel-based metrics for anything except color, from my perspective, just makes the future of research data and really, really interesting. You know, I'm trying to figure out how it plays out. There's a couple of companies that I thought Nava was really onto something, and Facebook just swiped them up and said, oh, it's because internet.org. It wasn't. Facebook was their biggest customer. They understood the value of that data. Having, from a narrow group of users, really rich data because they could see everything they did. So there's something there that I'm trying to figure out. And, you know, I'm talking to some guys who have the exact same thing built. And I'm talking to the former head of sales in Nava, who's without a job, but has a massive Rolodex of people who are pissed off because they don't have a product anymore. So I think there's something there. You know,
1% of the market.
Yeah, 1% of a very substantial business. Mobile media, right? So if advertising is $1 trillion, that's 1% of $1 trillion is, what's that, 100 billion? You know, it's kind of big, I think. No, 10 billion. 10 billion.
So from my standpoint, you're going to see a maturation of
Just a
the
day.
monetization and acquisition of users in the marketplace. There'll always be that unique ability to organically acquire users from good content. I think that always marketing is going to help that. But you're going to see less and less of this hodgepodge of this inflexible market where you have to go to a certain advertiser, get to a certain platform, and there's going to be a lot more fluidity. You're going to see the market shrink in terms of where things buy, and a lot less middlemen that kind of hold boundaries and only access to certain supply. And the law of the consumer, in this case, the advertiser, is going to start to rule as the brand advertisers start to come in, and I don't know when that's going to be. We've been talking about that for 3 years in terms of mobile. You're going to start to
Most
see
of our revenue is brand.
prices go up, and the intelligence behind the buys is going to be more audience focused and more focused on who the user is, and is that user intelligent? Or, I'm sorry, is that user a good user for the business? That is
I think the whole thing, like if you think about what's happening in attribution modeling, so there's this confluence of things where you got programmatic owning advertising ultimately, right? There'll still be room for people holding people's hands. It's marketing, and you know, people like pedicures, and people like to be taken to adult entertainment late at night. Like that's just the way the advertising business works. But programmatic wins, and you know, and we move less towards a focus on the medium and more towards a focus on the user. Across mediums.
You guys know what programmatic buying?
Yeah.
Programmatic means? It's basically like back in the day before the stock market was really digitized, everyone was trading around slips of paper to essentially trade buys of the market. When the stock market came in, you could just go in and from a computer standpoint, just buy a share of a company. Programmatic is very much like that in terms of advertising. You programmatically, automatically will buy a certain section of ad space. So it's a maturation of the model in the space. That's what's up.
So it's thinning out a bit. Do any of you guys have any questions, like hands-on?
So if you're going to launch an app, what are you going to do?
What do you mean?
To make it successful. I mean,
What kind of ad?
Understand your users.
understand the users.
Make a great product and understand your users and try and
Your
get
audience.
your audience and who might think it's cool, who might talk about it.
What's the value of them? What's the monetization model out of them? How do you make money out of them? How do you retain them?
Yeah, and I think to go along with the point you guys were making.
Buy
too,
lots of data.
Yeah.
I got a lot of it.
From my perspective, from our perspective though, like the industry is very fledgling. I mean, for you guys too, like we can't even get like demographic data about people who are under the age of 18 and specifically not under the age of 13, right? So that's a huge segment of mobile gamers that are, you know, children who don't own credit cards yet, right? And so it's really hard to track them. It's hard to find out who they are.
Well, you can track them under law.
Right.
Yeah, if you like your freedom, you shouldn't track them. Yeah, if you like your freedom, you shouldn't track them.
Right, but I think that as, you know,
I do volunteer work down at 850 Bryan. You don't want to hang out down there, dude. Don't track kids.
I'm not saying track them. I'm saying like analyze their behavior within your own app.
You can't do it.
No,
You're
but
not allowed to do it.
Say 13 to 18.
No, you can't. COPA law,
Right.
13 to 18, you got to be very careful.
That's what
I've
I'm
done
saying.
it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That
Know
if
the
you
rules,
could-
know the regulations.
Right. So what I'm saying is you can't do that right now. If you could, that could be a really valuable market, and there are ways to sort of get around that and still comply with COPA. But like I think that is definitely a huge area that's very important. I mean, you can't even find out you know what age they are generally.
It's hard. COPA
so-
makes things hard.
Yeah,
And
age, gender, these are things that we just don't know yet. And if we can like kind of get beyond that, like we can analyze what songs people are singing and sort of get an idea about, you know, what sorts of things.
I'd be really, really interested in metrics that aren't specific to a user, that are more broad-based, that are equally predictive from an outcome perspective. But, you know, I just think that there's this increasing focus on I need more and more and more granular intelligence about this one individual. And that is going, like, as we...
Well, this isn't that granular though. This is just saying, like, I want age groups from 25 to 35.
Yeah, I know. I think that.
Can't even get it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, and it's hard to buy that as well. So,
Yeah.
first of all, the challenge is understanding where you're going to resonate. So, who am I going to be best with? And then from that point, can I even acquire those users at a value that's good ROI?
Yeah. Like, I mean, for us, if we could identify who's a metalhead, you know, and who, like, there's probably three big markets that we could just nail. First-time user experience, know where they came from. You know, they were using Candy Crush, and now they're coming over to our app, and we can find out, like, oh, the majority of them want to sing Britney Spears, right? If we just, boom, throw in Britney Spears to begin with, you know, maybe we'll...
Metalheads are the biggest consumers of music.
Are they?
They're the most broad-based because they
They're
start
very
metal.
passionate, yeah.
Very passionate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be one last question.
Yeah. So if you're launching a campaign to promote a new app, what percentage of it would you put into the channel for mobile itself versus web or?
What's your product?
What's the app?
The app would be a personal services, beauty service type thing.
Is it an app?
Yeah, is it
It's an
mobile?
app. It's
No, there's no web.
there's no web.
Well, so there's a technical issue there, which is you can't track users between the web and the app. So I couldn't even sell you a user on the app if I was advertising through the web. So you could solve that.
Right. So I'm hearing from you, you put 100% into the campaign.
If you want to,
To get people to download an app, which is step one, and then they have to buy the service. And then, like you were saying before, you want to keep the churn down. You want to provide a great service and keep the churn rate.
you need to explore channels, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you can advertise on beauty.com for whatever price, and you can drive installs, first of all, you're not going to be able to attribute
Track
those
it.
installs.
Can't track it.
You're going to have to be able to only buy it on a CPM, which is per 1,000 views. So they're going to say, it's $10 per 1,000 views.
So there's no cost per action.
Right. They won't charge you a cost per action because you can't track, or they'll say we're 60% accurate or something. There's no accuracy there. But what you need to do is go to a company like HasOffers. You know, HasOffers is an attribution tracking company that will help you track the values of the users and the attribution of the channels. And when you start exploring with those different channels, you'll be able to track where the users are coming from. You'll be able to attribute the lifetime value or the sign up or whatever caused.
Yeah, we can do the back end and figure out the lifetime value.
That would be a way
But
for you
the
to track
front
the
end,
channels.
what you can measure is the download, that the app was downloaded from the ad that's on the mobile phone. Why not?
It depends what the channel is. There's ways to do it from the web.
Yeah, I mean,
Not from the web, I'm talking
If you
about.
solve it, you would make a ton of money. You will, at best, is 60% accurate.
if you could sponsor like beauty or a makeup artist on YouTube or something who has the audience that you're looking for, that might be useful.
I can tell you the technical reason. It's like there's a fingerprinting technology which is essentially an IFA, which is the identifier for advertising from iOS. Can't be attained through Safari. So you can't pull something from Safari, which means I can't say that, hey, this is my user, which means this is my install.
Right, so you're relying on fingerprinting.
You're relying on fingerprinting, which everyone on iPhone, how many of you have the iPhone 5 running iOS 7? Right? Like probably half of us. So how do you differentiate us from a fingerprinting technology, which is a user agent kind of just
It's a little bit more to it than that, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, 60% accuracy is roughly what it is. So unless, I had this conversation today with my tech people, unless I can say roughly borderline, what is your organic number of increases, and then pay
You can do it on Android.
or you're paying 40%.
You do Android, but let's say you're running,
It's more accurate.
In the
Let's say
future,
you're
maybe
running
have-
let's say you're running 1,000 impressions, and you get 50 downloads, then you would know.
How do you say you get this down?
Maybe
Well, you could watch your own.
spend money with this guy.
Come talk
Yeah, that's the answer. Spend money with this guy.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you too. Pleasure.
Thank you.